The Bank of Israel surprising the biggest rate hike in 2 decades here. What do you think peak rates is going to look like in Israel when we have this really high inflationary outlook here and still very much running above the bank's own target? Morning.
Yeah, morning. Thanks for having me. Yeah, indeed, the central bank surprised us a bit to the upside yesterday by hiking 75 basis points instead of the 50 basis points widely expected by most economists. However, if we look into the details here, I think it shouldn't be seen as such a big surprise that the Bank of Israel decided to go for 75 basis points at this point in time. As you already mentioned earlier, inflation has surprised to the upside. Headline inflation came in much stronger than expected. Core inflation has been on the rise. And what is very important, overall inflationary pressures have been very broad-based. And some of the stickier components, particularly housing, has been on the rise of late and actually is at record high levels. So I think there are some reasons why on the inflation front, why the 75 basis points hike at this point in time was justified. In addition, the growth dynamics have been quite robust. Q2 growth was decent. The labor market is quite tight. In addition, the PMIs, in contrast to a lot of other countries, has shown quite strong signs. So overall, I think the underlying story is quite strong. The reason why most economists, and including us, were expecting 50 basis points at this point in time was just the strength of the currency. Keep in mind that the shekel was one of the strongest performing currencies in the second half of the year so far, but I would say mostly due to the strong performance of U.S. equities rather than a repricing in rates. But I think that was one of the reasons that most were expecting a more gradual approach. But I think it's now very clear that this central bank is very committed to bring inflation back down. And one thing is also clear in Israel, in contrary to a lot of other countries, Israel has less of an inflation problem structurally than a lot of the CE countries, for example, or other EM countries.